Ambassador Min-Jun Kim walked through the crystal corridors of Nexus Prime, his steps echoing against walls that sparkled with alien technology. For 15 years, this place had been his second home. The massive space station orbited no planet, floating in neutral space where all species could meet as equals. At least, that was what Min-Jun had believed. He nodded to a Vrex diplomat as he passed. The insectoid creature clicked its mandibles in greeting, its compound eyes reflecting the station's lights. Min-Jun had learned to read their body language years ago. The Vrex had seemed like friends. So had the Thalons, the Zeref, and all the others who made up the Galactic Council. Today was the Grand Assembly, where humanity would finally receive full voting status in the Council. Earth had worked hard for this moment, proving themselves peaceful and cooperative. They had shared their art, their music, their technology. They had opened their worlds to alien visitors. They had done everything right. Min-Jun entered his temporary quarters to review the ceremony details one final time. As he sat at his desk, his datapad chimed with an incoming file. The sender was listed as anonymous. His security training told him to delete it immediately, but something made him hesitate. He opened it. The file contained thousands of documents, all marked with the highest security classifications from different alien governments. Min-Jun's hands began to shake as he read. He went through page after page, his stomach twisting tighter with each word. It was called the Harvest Accord, signed secretly by every major species in the Galactic Council. Signed 12 years ago, just 3 years after humanity had made first contact. The document outlined a plan in cold, clinical language. Humanity would be designated a slave race for the entire galaxy. Min-Jun read the justifications they had written. Humans were intelligent enough for complex tasks, but young enough to have no powerful allies. They bred quickly and adapted to different environments easily. Their bodies were strong and their minds were clever. They would make perfect workers for the dangerous jobs that other species did not want to do. The file showed how carefully they had planned everything. The friendly diplomatic missions had been intelligence gathering. Every cultural exchange had included medical teams studying human biology, looking for weaknesses. The alien merchants who had visited Earth's colonies were mapping populations and defenses. The Council had encouraged humans to spread out to different worlds, not because they welcomed humanity's growth, but because scattered colonies would be easier to attack and capture. 16 species had signed the accord. Not just a few criminal organizations or rogue governments. Every major civilization in the Council had agreed that humanity should be enslaved. The Vrex had proposed it. The Thalons had provided the legal framework. The Zeref had designed the weapons. Species that Min-Jun had called friends had spent years planning to chain his people. The documents showed detailed plans for the attack. Simultaneous strikes on all 40 human colonies, stun weapons and neural disruptors specifically calibrated for human nervous systems. Transport ships ready to carry billions of captives to slave markets across the galaxy. The attack would begin within days, right after the Grand Assembly ceremony. They wanted humanity relaxed and celebrating, completely unprepared. Min-Jun sat frozen, trying to process what he had learned. Every smile had been a lie. Every treaty had been a trap. The galaxy did not see humans as partners or friends. They saw property, resources to be harvested like minerals or timber. His hands moved almost automatically, copying the files to a secure quantum transmitter hidden in his quarters. Earth needed to know. Earth needed to prepare. But even as he worked, Min-Jun realized how hopeless it seemed. Humanity had scattered across 40 worlds. Their military was decent, but designed for defense, not for fighting 16 species at once. How could they possibly survive? The door to his quarters suddenly opened. 3 Vrex security officers entered, their weapons already drawn. Behind them stood Ambassador Zethan, the Vrex who had mentored Min-Jun for years, who had taught him about galactic politics and called him friend. "I am sorry you found that information," Zethan said, his translator making his clicking speech into flat, emotionless words. "You were not supposed to know until it was over. We wanted to spare you the fear." Minjun backed away slowly. "Spare me? You were planning to enslave my entire species." "Not enslave. Employ," Zethan corrected. "You would have been cared for, fed, housed. Your role in galactic society would have been clear and purposeful. Many of your kind would have found satisfaction in their work." "We would have been slaves," Minjun said, his voice cold. "Property. You were going to destroy everything we built." Zethan's mandibles twitched in what might have been sadness, or might have been nothing at all. "Your species is young. You have no ancient claims, no historical territory. The galaxy was divided long before you reached the stars. There is no room for another sovereign power. But there is always need for workers. We were giving humanity a place in the galactic order by taking away our freedom." "Freedom is overrated by young species," Zethan said. "Security and purpose matter more. In time, your grandchildren would have understood." The Vrex security officers moved closer. Minjun knew he had seconds at most. His hand slammed down on the transmitter button. The device hummed, then exploded in a shower of sparks as one of the officers shot it. But the transmission had already begun. The files were racing toward Earth through quantum channels, faster than any ship could follow. "It is done," Minjun said quietly. "Earth knows everything." Zethan's body language shifted to something Minjun could not read. "Then the harvest must begin early. We had hoped to avoid military conflict. Your warning will change nothing except the casualty count." Minjun was taken to a detention cell deep in Nexus Prime. Hours later, through the small window, he saw the fleets gathering. Hundreds of ships from 16 different species, all preparing to jump to human space. The largest military force ever assembled by the Galactic Council. As the fleets vanished into hyperspace, Minjun pressed his hand against the cold wall and whispered a prayer. Not for himself, but for the billions who had no idea what was coming. For the children who would wake up tomorrow in chains. For the civilization that had reached for the stars with hope and would find only betrayal. The galaxy had made its choice. Now humanity would have to make theirs. And Minjun wondered, trapped and helpless, what choice his species could possibly make against such overwhelming power. Commander Park Jiwoo stood on the bridge of the defense station orbiting New Busan colony when the first alien ships appeared. One moment, the space around the colony was empty. The next, 300 vessels materialized in perfect attack formation. Vrex cruisers, Thalon warships, Xeraf carriers, and a dozen other species he recognized from diplomatic files. "All hands to battle stations," he said calmly, though his heart hammered in his chest. "Launch all fighters. Activate planetary shields." The warning from Ambassador Minjun had arrived just 6 hours earlier. 6 hours to prepare for what the message called the harvest. 6 hours to ready defenses against 16 species who had spent years planning this attack. It was not nearly enough time. Park's wife and 2 daughters lived on New Busan's surface. He had sent them to the emergency shelters as soon as the warning came. Now he could only hope those shelters would be enough. The alien fleet did not bother with communication or demands. They simply attacked. Weapons fire lit up space as human ships moved to intercept. Park's forces fought with desperate courage, but they were overwhelmed. For every alien ship destroyed, 3 more took its place. The aliens used weapons Park had never seen before. Blue energy beams that passed through shields and disabled ship systems instantly. Missiles that split into dozens of smaller projectiles, each one tracking a different target. Most terrifying were the neural disruptors, designed specifically to affect human biology. Any crew member caught in their field collapsed unconscious within seconds. Park watched his fleet die around him. The defense station shuddered as alien weapons tore through its hull. Emergency alarms screamed throughout the corridors. Through the viewport, he saw landing craft descending toward New Busan's cities, thousands of them like a swarm of locusts. "Sir, we have to evacuate," his second officer said. "Not yet," Park said. "Route all remaining power to the station's main cannon. Target their command ship. That will leave life support with no backup power." "Do it!" The station's massive cannon fired one last time, its beam cutting through space and punching through a Vrex dreadnought's shields. The alien ship broke apart in a beautiful, terrible explosion. Park felt no satisfaction. It was one ship among hundreds. The station's power failed. Emergency lights flickered on, casting everything in red shadows. Park and his crew made it to the escape pods, launching away from the dying station just before it exploded behind them. As his pod descended toward New Busan, Park saw the harvest happening below. Alien soldiers moved through the streets with brutal efficiency. Humans who resisted were stunned unconscious. Families were separated, loaded onto different transport ships. The aliens had done this before on other worlds. Their tactics were perfect and merciless. Park's pod crashed in the outskirts of New Busan's capital city. He and his surviving crew armed themselves with whatever weapons they could find and tried to reach the shelter where his family had gone. But the aliens were everywhere. He saw neighbors he had known for years dragged from their homes. He saw children crying for parents who could not reach them. He saw the neural disruptors used on crowds of civilians, leaving hundreds of unconscious humans stacked like cargo. A Thalon soldier spotted Park's group and opened fire. They fought back, but their weapons were meant for human opponents. The aliens' armor shrugged off their bullets. Park watched 3 of his crew die before they managed to bring the creature down with concentrated fire at its joints. They reached the shelter to find it had already been breached. Alien soldiers were methodically removing the humans hiding inside, scanning each one with strange devices before sorting them into groups. Park pushed forward, searching desperately for his family. He found them near the back. His wife, Soo-jin, held their 2 daughters close. When she saw Park, relief flooded her face for just a moment before fear returned. An insectoid Vrex soldier was approaching them, scanner in hand. Park raised his weapon, but a neural disruptor blast from behind dropped him to his knees. His body would not obey his commands. He could only watch as the Vrex scanned his family and marked them with glowing tags. The tags designated them for transport to different locations. His wife to one ship, his daughters to another. "No," Park tried to say, but his mouth would not work. "Please, no." Soo-jin looked at him, tears streaming down her face. She mouthed the words, "I love you," as aliens dragged her away. His daughters screamed for their mother, then for him, as different soldiers carried them toward the transport ships. Park lay paralyzed on the shelter floor while the harvest continued around him. Hours passed before the neural disruptor's effects faded enough for him to move. By then, the aliens were gone. New Busan's streets were empty. 50 million humans had lived on this colony. Now there were perhaps a few 100,000 left, those the aliens had deemed too old or too sick to be worth taking. Similar scenes played out across all of humanity's colonies. New Hope fell in 2 days. Armstrong Station lasted 3. The colony on Tau Ceti fought for a week before being overwhelmed. Everywhere the story was the same. Human forces fought bravely but were crushed by superior numbers and technology specifically designed to counter their defenses. Earth itself remained free, but barely. The combined alien fleets formed a blockade, cutting off all supply lines and communications. 5 billion humans had been captured in the first 2 weeks of the harvest. Earth's remaining population of 10 billion could only watch in horror as images of slave markets reached them through hacked alien channels. The markets operated openly on a dozen different worlds. humans were displayed like livestock, sorted by age, health, and skills. Buyers bid on individual humans or bought them in bulk. Strong men went to mining operations on airless worlds. Skilled workers went to factories. Women and children were bought by wealthy families as domestic servants. The prices varied, but all were surprisingly cheap. Humanity's value had been calculated and found to be low. In the emergency bunker beneath Earth's capital, the planetary government held an endless session. Representatives from every nation argued about what to do. Some wanted to negotiate, to surrender peacefully in exchange for better treatment of the enslaved humans. Others wanted to keep fighting despite the impossible odds. General Yoon Min-sok, commander of Earth's Defense Force, listened to the arguments for 3 days before he finally spoke. "Negotiation is pointless," he said. "They do not see us as people. They see us as resources. Fighting conventionally is also pointless. We cannot match their numbers or technology." "Then what do you suggest?" the council leader asked. "Surrender?" "No," Yoon said quietly. "I suggest we stop fighting like we have something to lose. Our people are already enslaved. Our colonies are already destroyed. We have nothing left to protect except Earth itself. And if Earth falls, humanity ends anyway." He placed a data chip on the table. "For 15 years, while we played diplomat and friend to the galaxy, we also prepared for the possibility of betrayal. We have weapons the Council has never seen. Weapons we hoped never to use. They are terrible weapons, cruel weapons. Weapons that do not just win battles but erase entire species." The room fell silent. "If we use these weapons, there is no going back," Yoon continued. "The galaxy will see us as monsters. They may unite to destroy us completely, but they will also return our people. They will beg us to stop, and then they will never ever threaten humanity again." The vote took hours. When it finished, the result was unanimous. Earth would not surrender. Earth would not negotiate. Earth would show the galaxy what happened when you tried to chain humanity. Commander Park Ji-woo, back on Earth and promoted despite his failure to save New Busan, received his new orders directly from General Yoon. He read them 3 times before he believed what they said. "Are we really going to do this?" he asked. "They took everything from us," Yoon said. "Now we take everything from them." Park thought of his wife and daughters, somewhere in the galaxy, wearing slave collars and serving alien masters. He thought of the 5 billion other humans suffering the same fate. He thought of the children who would be born into slavery, who would never know freedom. "When do we begin?" he asked. The hidden military stations activated throughout the solar system, emerging from behind moons and asteroids where they had waited for 15 years. Commander Park Ji-woo stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Righteous Fury, one of 20 massive warships that had been built in secret while humanity smiled and shared culture with the galaxy. These were not defensive vessels. Every system, every weapon, every piece of technology had one purpose: overwhelming offensive power. The ships did not carry names like Hope or Unity. They carried names like Vengeance, Retribution, and Extinction. Because humanity had learned what the galaxy really thought of them. "All ships report ready," the communications officer said. Park looked at the display showing his fleet. Around him were the other 19 dreadnoughts, each carrying weapons that would make the Galactic Council wish they had simply left humanity alone. Behind them came hundreds of cruisers, destroyers, and carrier ships loaded with fighters. This was not Earth's entire military. This was just the first wave. "Set course for the Vrex homeworld," Park commanded. "Maximum speed." The fleet jumped into hyperspace, crossing the galaxy in 3 days. When they emerged at the edge of the Vrex system, alarms immediately sounded on every Vrex station and ship. The insectoid species had grown comfortable in their power. They had enslaved dozens of species over thousands of years. They had led the conspiracy against humanity. Now they would be the first to pay. The Vrex defense fleet moved to intercept over 500 ships protecting their home system. Park did not bother with threats or warnings. He simply gave the order to fire. The human weapons were nothing like what the galaxy had seen before. Particle beams that burned through shields like they did not exist. Missiles that could track targets through hyperspace jumps, and most devastating biological weapons that humanity had spent 15 years perfecting. During the cultural exchanges, humanity had obtained samples of every major species' genetics. They had done this carefully, politely, under the guise of medical research and scientific cooperation. The aliens had freely shared, never imagining what humans would do with that information. Now that research bore terrible fruit. The first wave of missiles that hit the Virex homeworld did not carry explosives. They carried engineered pathogens designed specifically for Vrex biology. The diseases spread through their hive connections, jumping from one insectoid to another with perfect efficiency. Within 24 hours, every major population center on the Vrex homeworld was infected. The Vrex had no natural immunity. The diseases attacked their respiratory systems, their nervous systems, their ability to communicate through pheromones. The victims died in agony, their hive minds fracturing and screaming across their neural networks. The death of one spread panic and pain to all others connected to them. Park watched the sensor readings as the Vrex population crashed. 17 billion lives. He felt nothing. They had planned to enslave his entire species. They had torn his family apart. This was justice. The Vrex defense fleet, confused and horrified by what was happening to their homeworld, tried to mount a counterattack. Human ships tore through them methodically. The battles were not even close. Humanity's weapons had been designed by people who knew they would only get one chance. Every shot counted. Every system worked perfectly. Within 72 hours, the Vrex homeworld was silent. The once proud species that had dominated the galactic slave trade for millennia was reduced to scattered survivors on distant colonies, all of them knowing their civilization was finished. The galaxy watched in horror. Every species monitored the destruction, seeing the recordings that humanity deliberately broadcast. Park made sure they all understood the message. This is what happens when you threaten humanity. The human fleet did not stop. They jumped to the Thalon ocean worlds next. The aquatic species had provided the legal framework for the Harvest Accord, writing the laws that declared humanity could be property. They lived in vast underwater cities on 12 different planets, their civilization built in the depths of alien seas. Humanity showed them the depths of human fury instead. The weapons dropped into Thalon oceans were not bombs. They were thermal devices that superheated water on a molecular level. The seas began to boil. Steam rose in massive clouds that choked the atmosphere. The Thalon fled their cities, but there was nowhere to go. Their entire civilization depended on liquid water, and humanity was taking it away. Some Thalon tried to evacuate to space stations, but human fighters hunted them down. Others tried to surrender, begging for mercy. Park's response was broadcast across all channels. "You gave our children no mercy. You sold them like animals. We will give you exactly what you gave us. Nothing." The Thalon worlds became dead, dry rocks orbiting their stars. Another civilization erased from the galaxy. The Zeref tried to prepare defenses when they saw the human fleet approaching their crystalline habitats. The silicon-based life forms had designed the neural disruptors used in the harvest. They had studied human biology and created weapons specifically to enslave humanity efficiently. They thought their unique biology would protect them from human weapons. They were wrong. Humanity had studied them too. The resonance weapons that human ships fired were calibrated to the exact frequency of Zeref crystalline structures. The weapons caused the aliens' bodies to vibrate at frequencies they could not withstand. The Zeref literally shattered, their crystalline forms breaking apart into dust. Their habitats, beautiful structures that had taken centuries to grow, crumbled as the resonance weapons swept through them. In the cold vacuum of space, the Zeref died silently, their civilization's achievements turning to glittering debris. 10 species watched the destruction of 3 major civilizations and immediately began returning their human captives. Transport ships raced toward human space, their cargo holds full of freed slaves, their governments desperately broadcasting apologies and surrender. But 6 species refused. They believed humanity was bluffing, that Earth could not possibly sustain this level of warfare. They thought the moral cost would make humans stop. They believed there had to be limits to human fury. They were wrong about all of it. General Yoon contacted Park from Earth with new orders. The 6 who refused to return our people have their coordinates. The Krell, the Morphians, the Dexari, the Solvorians, the Kryn, and the Heptar. Show them no mercy. Make it clear to the entire galaxy what the price of defying humanity truly is. Park thought about his daughters. Intelligence reports suggested they had been sold to a Krell military family as servants. His wife was somewhere in Morphian space. He had received recordings of the slave markets where they had been displayed and sold. The recordings were meant to break human morale. Instead, they broke something else in Park, something that might have once been called mercy. "Understood," he said. "We will erase them." Ambassador Min-Jun Kim, freed when the council collapsed in panic, managed to get a message to Park before the next attack began. "Commander, please. 10 species have surrendered. They are returning our people. The galaxy understands the message. We can stop now. We can show that humanity is better than this." Park read the message and sent back a single sentence. "They would have enslaved our grandchildren. There will be no next time." The human fleet split into 6 task forces, each assigned to erase one of the refusing species from existence. They carried weapons even more terrible than what they had already used. Nanite swarms programmed with specific genetic targets, gravity weapons that could collapse a planet's core, stellar torpedoes that could destabilize a star and turn it into a system-killing bomb. As the fleets jumped toward their targets, Park stood alone on his bridge and looked at an image of his family from before the harvest. His daughters smiling, his wife laughing, all of them free and happy. "I will bring you home," he whispered to the image. "No matter what I have to become to do it." Behind him, his crew prepared the weapons that would kill billions more. They worked in silence, their faces showing no emotion. They had all lost someone in the harvest. They had all seen the slave markets. They had all made the same choice Park had. Mercy was for species who deserved it. The Galactic Council had proven they did not. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity remembered every wrong and repaid every debt. With interest, that would be measured in extinction. The Krell had built their civilization on conquest and military pride. They were warriors who had defeated every species they had encountered in battle. They had 3 homeworlds, each one a fortress covered in weapons and defended by fleets that had never known defeat. When they heard humanity was coming, they laughed and prepared for war. Commander Park Ji-woo's task force arrived at the first Krell world with a simple message broadcast on all frequencies. "Return every human in your possession within 1 hour, or this world dies." The Krell High Commander responded with mockery. "Come and take them, if you can. We do not fear children playing with weapons they do not understand." Park checked the countdown timer. When it reached 0, he gave the order. "Fire stellar torpedoes, all 3 stars." The Krell system had 3 suns, a rare configuration that made their worlds warm and bright. The torpedoes that struck each star were small devices, but they carried compressed dark matter cores that destabilized stellar fusion. The reaction would take time, but it was irreversible. The Krell did not realize what humanity had done until their stars began to flicker. Scientists across all three worlds detected the anomaly simultaneously and understood with growing horror. Their sons were dying, not in millions of years but in hours. Panic spread through the Krell civilization. Their massive defense fleets suddenly had no purpose. You could not shoot a dying star. You could not defend against physics itself. They had minutes to evacuate 3 entire worlds, and nowhere near enough ships to do it. Park watched on his displays as the Krell abandoned their military pride and begged for evacuation assistance. He watched families scramble for escape pods. He watched children crying in the arms of parents who knew there was no escape. He watched all of it and felt nothing. "Sir, they are trying to surrender," his communications officer said. "They say they will return the humans immediately." "Too late," Park said. "They had their chance." The 3 suns collapsed within 6 hours of each other. Each collapse created a shock wave that sterilized every planet in the system. The Krell homeworlds, fortresses that had stood for 10,000 years, became chunks of burned rock orbiting dead stars. 400 billion Krell died. Their scattered colonies across the galaxy suddenly found themselves alone, their civilization's heart torn out. The Morphean Collective tried to hide when they learned what happened to the Krell. They were shapeshifters who lived in the Great Veil Nebula, their colonies scattered among gas clouds where sensors could not easily find them. They thought the nebula would protect them. Humanity found them anyway. Human ships had been built with sensors specifically designed to track the Morpheans' unique energy signatures. Every colony was located within a day. Then the human fleet deployed weapons that ignited the nebula's gases. The Veil Nebula burned. Trillions of tons of hydrogen and helium caught fire in a chain reaction that spread across light years. The beautiful clouds that had been home to the Morpheans became a blazing hell. The colonies tried to evacuate, but the fire moved faster than their ships. The Morphean Collective, which had existed for 50,000 years, died in 3 days of fire. Park received a message from his intelligence officers. They had located his wife. She was on a Morphean station that had been deep in the nebula. The station was gone now, consumed by the fire that humanity had set. He stood on his bridge, staring at the burning nebula on the display, and felt something crack inside him. Su Jin was dead, not killed by their enemies, but by his own weapons. He had set the fire that killed her. His second officer approached cautiously. "Sir, the Morphean colonies are destroyed. Should we proceed to the next target?" Park wanted to scream. He wanted to collapse. He wanted to undo everything. But his daughters were still alive somewhere, still enslaved. He could not stop now. "Proceed," he said, his voice empty. The Dexari tried to fight conventionally. They marshaled their fleets and met humanity in open battle near their industrial worlds. It was a mistake. Human weapons tore through their ships like paper. The nanite swarms were released on their planets, programmed to consume Dexari genetic material specifically. The Dexari soldiers on the surface watched in horror as the gray swarm descended from orbit. The nanites consumed everything organic that matched Dexari DNA. Plants they had brought from their homeworld, their food supplies, their bodies. The swarm left buildings and technology untouched, but every Dexari on those worlds simply dissolved into component atoms. Clean, efficient, absolute. The Solvorians surrendered after seeing what happened to the Dexari. They broadcast their surrender across every channel, returning the humans they held and begging for mercy. Park's fleet arrived at their worlds anyway. "We do not accept surrender," Park broadcast to the terrified population. "You had your chance. This is not war. This is extinction." Gravity weapons struck the Solvorian homeworld. The planet's core began to collapse. Earthquakes shattered cities. Volcanoes erupted across the surface. The planet was destroying itself from within, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. The Solvorians died screaming, their world cracking apart beneath them. The Kryn tried to flee into dark space, beyond the mapped galaxy where they thought humanity could not follow. Human hunter ships pursued them into the void. There was no hiding, no escape. Every Kryn colony ship was found and destroyed. Every refugee station was eliminated. Humanity did not leave survivors to rebuild. The Heptar were last. They were aquatic telepaths who had never personally harmed any humans, but had voted in favor of the Harvest Accord. They sent Ambassador Min Jun desperate pleas, arguing they had only followed the Council's lead, that they did not deserve extinction for one vote. Min Jun brought their pleas to Park. "Commander, the Heptar are asking for mercy. They released their human captives weeks ago. They have tried to make amends." "Did they show mercy to those captives when they voted to enslave them?" Park asked. "Did they care that families would be torn apart? That children would grow up in chains?" "No. But we can choose to be better than them. We can show the galaxy that humanity has limits, that we punish but do not genocide." Park thought of his daughters, still lost somewhere in the galaxy. He thought of his wife, dead in fire he had set. He thought of 5 billion humans who had been treated like animals. "The galaxy needs to learn that threatening humanity has consequences that last forever," Park said. "No species that supported the harvest can be allowed to survive. If even one remains, others might think they could try again someday. Our grandchildren deserve a galaxy that fears humanity too much to ever consider enslaving them." "At what cost?" Min Jun asked. "How many billions have we killed? How many civilizations have we erased? When does it end?" "When it is done," Park said. The human fleet arrived at the Heptar homeworld. The telepathic species broadcast their last thoughts across the galaxy as the weapons struck. Fear, regret, pleading, then silence. 4 species had been completely erased from existence, trillions dead. Their homeworlds were lifeless or destroyed. Their cultures were gone. Their languages would never be spoken again. Humanity had done in weeks what the galaxy had thought impossible. They had proven that even ancient, powerful civilizations could be ended if they threatened the wrong species. The remaining species of the Galactic Council, those who had surrendered early, watched in absolute terror. They returned every human they held. They paid massive reparations. They signed treaties giving humanity anything Earth demanded. They did everything they could to avoid becoming the next target. Park's fleet finally returned to Earth orbit. The ships came home to cheering crowds who celebrated the freed captives returning home. 5 billion humans had been rescued from slavery. Humanity was victorious. But Park stood on his bridge and felt no triumph. The cost of victory surrounded him. 4 civilizations extinct, his wife dead, billions of people killed, many of them civilians who had never personally enslaved anyone. He had become something he did not recognize. Ambassador Min Jun came to see him before the fleet dispersed. "You did what you thought necessary. The freed slaves are grateful. Earth is safe. The galaxy will never threaten us again." "I killed my wife," Park said quietly. "The fire in the Morphean Nebula. She was there. I gave the order that killed her." Min Jun had no answer for that. He put a hand on Park's shoulder and stood in silence. "Was it worth it?" Park asked. "All these deaths, all this destruction. Did we save humanity, or just become monsters?" "I do not know," Min Jun said honestly. "History will judge us. Our children will judge us. Right now, all I know is that humans are free, and the galaxy is afraid. Whether that makes us heroes or villains, I cannot say." Park looked out at Earth, beautiful and blue below. Somewhere on that planet, his daughters were waiting for him. They had been found in the first wave of returns, traumatized but alive. He would see them soon. He would have to explain what he had done and why. He would have to live with the look in their eyes when they understood the price of their freedom. "Send a message to the fleet," Park said. "All ships stand down. The war is over. We won." But as he said the words, Park wondered if anyone had really won at all. 1 year after the war ended, Commander Park Ji-woo stood in a courtroom on Earth, facing charges of genocide. The prosecutor was human. The judges were human. His accusers were his own people, demanding justice for the billions of aliens who had died under his command. Commander Park gave orders that resulted in the complete extinction of 4 sentient species, the prosecutor said. Trillions of individuals, many of them civilians, including children. He ignored surrender offers. He continued attacks even after our people were freed. These are crimes against all sentient life, Park's defense attorney argued back. Commander Park saved 5 billion humans from slavery. He protected Earth when no one else could. He did what was necessary to ensure humanity would never be threatened again. In war, difficult choices must be made. The trial lasted 3 months. Every day, Park sat and listened to the evidence. Recordings of dying civilizations, casualty estimates, testimony from freed slaves who were grateful but horrified, testimony from his own crew who had followed his orders without question. Ambassador Min-Jun Kim testified as a witness. I told Commander Park to stop. After the first surrenders, after we began recovering our people, I begged him to show mercy. He refused. He believed total extinction was the only way to guarantee humanity's safety. Do you agree with his decision? The prosecutor asked. Min-Jun hesitated. I understand why he did it. I even understand the logic. But understanding something does not mean accepting it. We had won. Our people were coming home. The continued killing was not defense. It was vengeance. Park's daughters attended every day of the trial. They sat in the gallery and watched their father being judged. They had been freed from slavery, found in a Krell colony by human rescue teams. They were 12 and 14 now, old enough to understand what had happened to them and what their father had done to free them. When Park finally testified, he did not try to hide behind justifications or military necessity. I gave the orders. I knew what the weapons would do. I knew civilians would die. I ordered it anyway because I believed the galaxy needed to learn that enslaving humanity had permanent consequences. Do you regret your actions? The judge asked. Park looked at his daughters in the gallery. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that my wife died in the fire I set. I regret that I had to become someone capable of ordering extinction. But I do not regret saving my daughters and the billions of other humans who were enslaved. If I had to make the choice again, knowing everything I know now, I would make the same decision. The courtroom fell silent. The judge deliberated for a week before delivering the verdict. Commander Park Ji-woo is found guilty of excessive use of force and crimes against sentient life. However, the court recognizes the extraordinary circumstances that led to these actions. Humanity faced extinction as a free species. Commander Park's actions, while extreme, resulted in the liberation of 5 billion humans and the protection of Earth. Therefore, the sentence is confinement to Earth for life, with the rank and honors maintained. He will not see prison, but he will never leave this planet. Park accepted the sentence without argument. He had expected worse. Many people thought he deserved execution. Many others thought he deserved a medal. The compromise satisfied no one completely. The galaxy had changed dramatically in 1 year. The surviving species of the former Galactic Council existed in constant fear. They paid tribute to Earth regularly. They avoided human space. They did exactly what humanity told them to do. The peace was real, but it was built on terror rather than respect. New human colonies spread out across the galaxy, taking territory that had once belonged to the extinct species. The expansion was unopposed. No one dared tell humanity where they could or could not go. Earth had become the dominant power in known space by proving they would rather destroy the entire galaxy than accept slavery. But the cost weighed on humanity. The freed slaves struggled to reintegrate. Many had been enslaved for years, treated as property, separated from families. They came home to a civilization that had committed genocide to rescue them. Some felt grateful, others felt guilty. All of them were traumatized. The younger generation, those who had not lived through the harvest, questioned what had been done in their name. Universities held debates about the ethics of extinction as a defensive strategy. Some argued it was justified. Others argued humanity had lost its moral authority. The arguments never ended. Park returned to a small apartment in Seoul. His daughters lived with him, but their relationship was strained. They loved him because he was their father. They were grateful he had saved them. But they had nightmares about what they had experienced, and they knew their rescue had cost billions of lives. "Do you think we are bad people?" his younger daughter, Jia, asked him one night. "The aliens at school say humans are monsters. They say we killed their grandparents." Park did not lie to her. "We did terrible things, but they were done to protect you and everyone else. Does that make us bad? I do not know. You will have to decide that for yourself when you are older." "I wish it never happened," she said quietly. "I wish they had never taken us. Then you would not have had to do those things." "I wish that too," Park said. Minjun visited Park occasionally. The ambassador had been appointed as Earth's representative to what remained of the Galactic Council. He spent his time trying to rebuild diplomatic relationships and prove humanity could be peaceful again. It was difficult work. The galaxy remembered the burning nebulas and dying stars. "How is the diplomatic situation?" Park asked during one visit. "Terrified," Minjun said bluntly. "Every species walks on eggshells around us. They agree to every human demand. They complement our culture. They act like they always supported us. But I see the fear in their eyes. They think we might decide to exterminate them next if they displease us." "Maybe that fear is necessary," Park said. "Maybe it keeps everyone safe." "Fear is not friendship," Minjun said. "Fear is not respect. Fear is just waiting for the next atrocity." "We wanted to be part of the galactic community. Now we rule it through terror. Is that really what we wanted?" Park had no answer. He had saved humanity, but lost something in the process. He could see it in his daughter's eyes. He could see it in the way other humans looked at him. Hero and monster, savior and killer, both at the same time. On the anniversary of the war's end, Park visited a memorial that had been built in Earth's orbit. It was a strange structure built to honor multiple groups. One section listed the names of humans who had died in the harvest. Another section listed the names of human soldiers who had died in the war. And a final section, the most controversial one, listed the names of the 4 extinct species. Park stood before that final section and read the names carved there: Vrex, Thalon, Zeraph, Morphean, Dexari, Sulvorian, Kryn, Heptar. 4 complete civilizations, trillions of individuals, gone forever because they had threatened humanity. Minjun found him there. "I am surprised you come here." "Someone should remember them," Park said. "Not to mourn them, not to regret what we did, but to remember that extinction is permanent. Once a species is gone, it can never come back. What we did can never be undone." They stood together in silence, looking at the names. "Do you think it was worth it?" Minjun asked. "All these deaths for our freedom?" Park thought of his daughters, alive and free. He thought of the 5 billion rescued slaves. He thought of the galaxy that would never again dare to enslave humanity. "Yes," he said finally, "it was worth it, but that does not mean it was right. Sometimes the necessary choice and the right choice are not the same thing." "Then we must live with what we chose," Minjun said. "Yes, we must live with it." They returned to Earth together, leaving the memorial behind. Below them, the planet turned peacefully in space. Around it orbited the largest military fleet in the galaxy. Human ships, armed with weapons that could erase civilizations. ready to defend humanity against any threat. The galaxy was at peace. Humanity was safe. The price had been paid in full, in blood and fire and extinct species. Park's daughters grew up in this new galaxy. They went to schools where alien children feared them and human children looked at them with pity. They carried the weight of being rescued at the cost of billions. They learned to live with it because they had no choice. Years later, Gia asked her father one final question. "If you could go back and change it, would you?" Park looked at his daughter, free and alive, standing in the sunshine on Earth's surface. Behind her, the sky was filled with human ships that guaranteed no one would ever threaten her again. "No," he said honestly. "I would not change it. You are here. You are free. That is all that matters." "Even though Mom died? Even though billions died?" "Even then." Gia nodded slowly, accepting the answer she had expected. She hugged her father and whispered, "I am glad I am alive, Dad. But I wish the cost had not been so high." "So do I," Park said, "every single day." The galaxy turned. Humanity spread across the stars. The freed slaves rebuilt their lives. The extinct species remained extinct, remembered only in databases and memorials. Earth stood alone in its terrible strength, respected by none and feared by all. They had won their freedom. They had guaranteed their survival. They had proven that humanity would choose extinction over slavery, both for themselves and for anyone who threatened them. The question of whether that made them heroes or monsters remained unanswered. Perhaps it always would be. Perhaps some questions have no good answers, only necessary ones. Park stood on Earth and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, 4 species used to live. 4 civilizations with their own histories, cultures, dreams. Gone now. Gone forever. Gone because they had made humanity choose between slavery and genocide. Humanity had chosen genocide. And now they had to live with that choice. Forever.